Hi, this week on March 13th or 14th, depending on where you live, we will have a lunar eclipse in Virgo. And this is the first in a series of eclipses in Virgo that will occur over the course of the next couple of years. So, this is a great time to think about what a lunar eclipse in Virgo really means in astrology, what it means that we're working with this moon conjunct the South Node in Virgo and just the South Node in Virgo in general. I notice that this is moving forward and I just want to wait because I have something on there to talk about right now as well. But hi, I'm Gina. Welcome to this daily Astrology Chat live. I'm so happy to have you here today. Let's go ahead and get into this conversation about a practice that you can do to observe the lunar eclipse in Virgo, to sort of celebrate it, to integrate it. You know, eclipses can often be about something happening in the world. So much in astrology can be sort of internal or a little bit subtle. Even this, I'm just circling our aspect for this eclipse here. Even this Venus retrograde that we're having right now, it's kind of relational. It's sort of about our feelings. It's kind of an internal process, and it might not be as obvious to you. But one of the things about eclipses that's really remarkable is that often it does correlate with some sort of a happening, something going on in your actual world. And if we do something, if we kind of take action, it can help to mitigate that. So, sort of doing your transit rather than it doing you, if you will. If we sort of act on it and fully embrace that signature and do something to observe the eclipse, it can sort of help us to be in a little bit more control. And it's also just a fun way to work with the astrology. Astrology is really a tool for introspection, for personal growth. And I think that using it in that way is sort of one of the highest potentials of it. So the big thing to know about South Node eclipses, this is the South Node here, which will be conjunct the moon on the 13th or 14th of March, depending on where you live, across from the Sun and the North Node. Thing to know about the South Node is wherever the South Node is traveling through the chart, it helps us to release the more negative or challenging shadow sides of that signature, of that zodiac astrological signature. Good morning. Good morning, Taylor. So, thinking about the sort of more challenging sides of Virgo, one powerful practice involves, and I'll sort of get more into how to do this specifically as we go here, but involves thinking about those more negative sides of the Virgo signature and sort of consciously releasing them. So, and that makes room for the higher sides of the Virgo signature and for the positive North Node and Pisces signatures. So, the more challenging sides of Virgo, so in the zodiac, that astrological signature can be being a bit too detail oriented, a bit too much of a perfectionist, sort of leaning on being detail oriented, being over scheduled, overbooked, over planned, being a little bit too critical with others, and more than anything else, being too hard on yourself, right? So these are the signatures that we can all be working on releasing at this time. And it can often be true that if you don't do something to sort of help you to release that, something might come up that will help you to. So that's why I kind of like to observe the eclipse in some kind of way. And so you can you can make a conscious decision to be a little less hard on yourself. You can make a decision to uh, sort of step back from the to-do list in a different kind of way, to not hold it as central to your movements as you always do, to not check it as often or all of that. I think the the big tip that I have, and this is kind of funny, is to intentionally do something that isn't perfect. Have you ever seen like that practice with art or with mandalas where they intentionally make a little mistake so that the design isn't absolutely perfect because life isn't perfect? And I always think, oh, that must be so painful because it's so fun when you're making those any kind of design like that and you're putting it together um, for it to be perfect. It's one thing in life that sort of can be. I can make this design absolutely symmetrical, absolutely perfect. Um, but the practice of, oh, yeah, but life isn't like that and we have to live with that. So I'm going to color a little out of the lines here. I'm going to I'm going to make a little error here almost on purpose. What about the practice of almost intentionally not being perfect? And I can tell you that I did this myself, and I think it was very liberating, and it wasn't super easy. At the beginning of this year of 2025, I said that I would do an Astrology Chat live, this recording that you're seeing now, every day in 2025. That I would spend a year and I would go live and talk about astrology each day. And I didn't yesterday. I missed the day yesterday. And I did that sort of in observance of this eclipse. But it was just a really busy day, too, right? I'm doing a bunch of different things. The day was getting away from me. I'm rushing and holding myself so accountable to this thing that, in a way, if I don't do it perfectly, what even happens? What even actually happens? And we can all do this. Where in your life are you putting more pressure on yourself than you need to? Where in your life are you being a little bit harder on yourself than you need to? And sometime this week, can you intentionally let that go a little bit? Can you intentionally sort of release that and just be a little bit less of a perfectionist? Can you make a little bit of a mistake on purpose and then be okay about it? Anything that we can do to not be as hard on ourselves as well. I think a great practice would be if this happens to you rather than you actually causing it. Let's say what happens with this eclipse is that you're releasing the negative side of the Virgo signature of being too hard on yourself, and that comes because someone else sort of is too hard on you. And it calls up this signature to you and makes you feel that way. Yes, letting it go a little bit can be a wonderful way to observe this full moon lunar eclipse. If there's a moment, if you catch yourself being too hard on yourself, can you say, I'm letting it go? I'm letting it go in this moment as we shift eras, as I continue to learn and grow, as I continue to mature. I understand that the more challenging side of the Virgo signature is this overcriticism, this being too hard on ourselves, and that releasing that makes way for something better. And let's talk for a second about what it makes way for. What's coming in that place? When those negative sides of the Virgo signature are released, it makes way for the higher sides. And the higher sides of the Virgo energy of that zodiac sign, wherever we all have them all in our charts, it's about service and connection from on a practical level and in such a sincere way. You know, sometimes Virgo energy isn't the best for helping you emotionally, but they will help you on a practical level. Virgo, if we release that need to be perfect, if we release being too hard on ourselves, maybe we can move more toward connecting with others from a place of sincere connection and wanting to serve, and in a practical way, right? We're not just sort of hearing the cries and being upset together and doing the emotional work, which is so valuable and so important as well. But Virgo reminds us, okay, yeah, but we have to go run some errands. We have to go to the store. We have to get the car fixed, whatever those things are. And Virgo energy can come in and sort of help you do that. So anything you can do this week to release that perfectionism, release that side of you that's too hard on yourself, that's too critical of others, and instead make way for that higher feeling of sincere connection with those around you, and of service from a place of wanting to give practical support in this world because you feel so connected. We're also working on bringing in those higher signatures of the Pisces energy. With the North Node in Pisces, we're being pulled toward Pisces. And that is all about sort of a more mystical, spiritual, surrender. Let me just take a sip of my coffee here. That can be moving from a place of being really attuned and aligned with others and with the divine and with our higher self, moving in the direction of that kind of oneness and that kind of connection more and more. So releasing that perfectionism, maybe even making a tiny little mistake on purpose, and or not doing it perfectly, not doing it exactly the way you always have, or maybe even the way you said you would, with something small, with something insignificant, where you know you're putting too much pressure on yourself. Just release it a little bit. I think this can be a powerful practice, and it can remind us of what we're moving towards and what we're moving away from. I also just want to say before I let you go that there's some really interesting things happening with Venus and Mercury right now as a part of this. So I have today's chart as well. I'm going to sneeze, excuse me. I think maybe doing these live is always interesting. Yeah, about half of you left during that. My apologies. Thank you for being here. If you are here, please give this video a like. Please check out my channel. Check out your horoscopes for March. Okay, let's talk about this March chart for just 1 second. For today, today's chart, because I think it's so significant, this little dance between Mercury and Venus right now. And I will talk more about this. I'll be back tomorrow. I want to talk about the Sun-Saturn conjunction that's building right now. But so often with, we have a Mercury retrograde. This Mercury retrograde is about to start. It kicks off right at the time of this eclipse. The day after, the very next day, we have Mercury turning retrograde. So Mercury, the ruler of this eclipse, sorry, let me go back. This eclipse right here is in the sign of Virgo. So the dispositors of the moon and the south node, I have a separate video on dispositors if you're interested. They are taking on the disposition of Mercury. So Mercury is the ruler of this eclipse, and Mercury is stationing retrograde at the time of the eclipse. And not only that, Mercury is having a conversation with Venus, who is retrograde all this week. Okay, you can see in this chart that we have Venus retrograde at 7 degrees and we have Mercury at 9 degrees. And then as we move forward, we have Mercury at 7 degrees and Venus at 9 degrees. So it's an interesting time. They're sort of in this little dance with each other, and we will talk more about this as well. But, well, I'm sorry, I actually did that in reverse. Let me correct myself so that I save face and don't confuse anybody. My apologies. Today is March 10th. Today is Monday, March 10th, and this is our chart. We have Venus here at 9 degrees, moving retrograde. We have Mercury at 7 degrees, for now moving direct. But by the time that we get to this lunar eclipse, they've switched places because Venus is moving retrograde. Venus will then be at 7 and Mercury will be at 9. So Venus and Mercury are in conversation this entire week. And what that means, I think, is that there's a lot of information coming in and there's a lot of feelings coming in, and they're coming in together. So you might be having thoughts about your feelings. That sounds confusing, or feelings about your thoughts. But Understanding our feelings is so important. And I think Mercury coming into this Venus retrograde signature, it like helps us understand what the Venus retrograde is all about. It might be helping us to intellectualize or put words to the relational process, the feelings associated with this Venus retrograde. And then with the Mercury retrograde happening, it's once that gets going later in the week and over the weekend coming up, it's not just an intellectual process. The Venus retrograde is helping us to have feelings about it too. So I just wanted to mention that. I will do more as we continue to go. Um, I am here every day, or I guess I should start saying almost every day, because I missed a day on purpose as my practice for this lunar eclipse in Virgo. Um, and I just wanted to share that with you. I think it's an interesting idea. Obviously, we want to do it with something where there isn't a lot of consequence, but it was interesting to be like, I kind of always thought if I missed one, it wouldn't be a big deal and everything would be absolutely fine. And it was kind of cool to actually see that play out. Like, yeah, it was actually fine. Nothing happened. We don't have to be so hard on ourselves. We don't have to be perfect. We don't have to overplan. We don't have to go 1,000 miles an hour all the time. That's not necessarily to get where the best way to get where we need to go. We need to bring in more spiritual processes, more ways of authentically aligning with people around us and with our higher selves and with who we really are, with our instincts. That helps us to move forward too. And sometimes all the overdoing, over planning, over scheduling, too hard on ourselves, too hard on others can get in the way of that. So that was really what I wanted to share today. Thank you so much for being here. I will be back again tomorrow. Have a great day.